Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside the Cage. MMA star drags into political chaos. In the twisting developments of UFC, Conor McGregor's name got dropped in the Dale alongside some supposed far-right troublemakers. This list includes the one who allegedly stirred up the Dublin incident. Usually he's all about hushing up such mentions, but not this time. On a lighter note, Adhan O'Riordan, a member of the Labour Party in Ireland, expressed his frustration and disapproval of the security barriers placed outside Leinster House. He called for the removal of these security barriers, emphasizing that having such barriers in front of the national parliament is not a positive image. In addition, he seems to be expressing dissatisfaction with both the security measures and what he perceives as opportunistic and inflammatory rhetoric used by some figures in the political arena. Labour TD Adhan O'Riordan said, "Now we have the pathetic sight of security barriers outside Leinster House, which looks to me like we have surrendered to them. That is now what we have to look at in the national parliament. Those barriers need to be taken down. All the while there are celebrities such as Conor McGregor, a gobdaw, and people in this chamber who use the words criminality and immigration in the same sentence as often as they can to get some cheap political gain for themselves." However, Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou McDonald didn't mince her words. According to McDonald, the whole aftermath was a total abject failure of the government. She wasn't holding back. And get this, Sinn Féin is on the front lines, calling for the head of Justice Minister McEntee. On the other hand, the government is scrambling to defend itself against accusations that it dropped the ball in protecting the public during the riot fallout. Meanwhile, Gavin Pepper, described as another far-right agitator, is said to have called people onto the streets for 7 p.m. in town. Derek Blyhay is mentioned as having a video in which he said, "We are at war," and this is noted as echoing the words of Conor McGregor. The reference to Conor McGregor is made in connection to his previous statement condemning the riots. McGregor, identified as a mixed martial arts fighter, is quoted as calling the riots despicable and expressing disapproval of attacks on first responders, looting, and damage to shops. As the situation continues to unfold, McGregor's unexpected association with the political discourse adds a layer of complexity to the variety of events in and around the UFC. Michael Page versus Kevin Holland. Now we have Michael Venom Page, the former Bellator welterweight contender who is like the hottest free agent in the game right now. And guess what? This guy's been throwing down in the Bellator ring for a solid decade, taking names like Douglas Lima and Goiti Yamauchi and leaving a trail of devastating knockouts. Whereas Dana White, the big boss at UFC, has confirmed they're eyeing Venom. Here, some eagle-eyed fans have spotted Page's name on Dana's board for UFC 297, going down on January 20th, 2023 in Toronto, Canada. Guess who's on the other side of that board? Kevin Holland is another welterweight knockout artist. Now, my friend, don't get too carried away because these boards aren't the be-all and end-all. It doesn't guarantee the fight's fully booked, and the screenshot is from a podcast filmed about a week ago. But you know how these leaked bouts go. More often than not, they end up happening. Venom might just be stepping into the UFC cage real soon, and his first fight partner could be none other than Trailblazer Holland. Now, let's see what UFC holds for us in the future. Dana White hits pause on Chandler vs. McGregor Showdown. Interestingly, Dana White finally tackled the potential showdown between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. Now Dana, who's usually been tight-lipped about this fight and McGregor's return from his long break, decided it was time to spill the beans. The Full Send podcast had him dishing out guarantees about McGregor's future. In its latest episode, White jumped into all sorts of topics during that hour-long chat, and he ensured that McGregor would be in the spotlight. "He 100% fights next year," Dana White said regarding when McGregor may return. However, Dana White didn't play the confirm or deny game when it comes to McGregor versus Chandler. Instead, he kind of dropped hints that it could go down whenever both McGregor and Chandler felt like it. During his discussion, he threw in a bit more interest in the potential McGregor versus Chandler showdown. Most importantly, Dana noted that fighters like Chandler aren't exactly rushing into the fight scene. He straight up mentioned that Chandler could just chill and wait for Conor to make his move. "We will see," White said. "I mean, we'll see the timing of when it goes down. The good thing for guys like Chandler, and you know there's a lot of shot talk about fighter pay and all that other shit, you don't see these guys hurrying up to fight. Chandler can hang out and wait for effing Conor. Even though the whole USADA testing partnership wrapped up in early 2024, McGregor is expected to stick around in their testing pool for another 6 months. Additionally, Dana White is noting Michael Chandler's transition from Bellator to the UFC and highlighting Chandler has the luxury to wait for the right fight, particularly in the context of a potential matchup with Conor McGregor. Undoubtedly, the UFC matchmaking magic is at play, and we're all just waiting for that epic clash to get the green light. Stay tuned, fight fans. UFC shocker reveals marketing scheme. Triple C, aka Henry Cejudo, just spilled some thoughts on the whole Ian Gary story, his controversial comments from the fan community, and the next fight at UFC 296. But here, things took a wild turn for him. Meanwhile, UFC middleweight champ Sean Strickland jumped into the ring of gossip, calling Gary's wife a succubus and advising Gary to step away from the whole mess. Now, in his YouTube commentary, Henry Cejudo weighed in on the Ian Gary situation with his wife. Essentially, Cejudo pointed out that once things start making rounds in the media and among figures like himself, caution is needed. He acknowledged that, whether intentional or not, Gary's wife has successfully generated attention by promoting her agenda. Then, he suggests into the possibility of it being a deliberate strategy by Gary and his wife. Cejudo acknowledged the potential success of her plan, noting that the attention they've received could even turn her book into a bestseller. He posed the question of whether he should commend her for her strategic moves or be skeptical and wonder if they are being played by her calculated moves. I think when there's too much promotion on what it is his wife or girlfriend is trying to accomplish, she's done a good job. Do you know why? Because we've been talking about them. He continued, "Is this something that Ian Gary and his wife are plotting? Because if it is, that wag is getting a lot of attention. That book could become a bestseller because she was able to get a young, up-and-coming, undefeated Irishman, and she was able to make him a Machado. She was able to give him her Brazilian last name. You talk about power. You talk about a woman with a plan. Is it that I want to hate on his wife or give kudos to her? Or does she have us fooled?" In the aftermath of Cejudo's insightful commentary, the MMA community remains confused with speculation and divided opinions on the Ian Gary saga. Some controversial insights into Octagon struggles. Recently, Joe Rogan is singing praises for David Goggins and calling him a national treasure. However, Joe's scratching his head over whether Tony Ferguson is reaping the benefits from training with Goggins ahead of UFC 296. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan expressed his curiosity about the impact of Tony Ferguson's training with David Goggins. He mentioned that varied opinions and reviews are circulating about whether this collaboration is beneficial or detrimental for Ferguson. In simple words, Rogan is excited to see the outcome and how Ferguson's performance might be influenced by his training with the endurance athlete and motivational speaker. "I'm very interested to see Tony after he's been training with David Goggins," Rogan said on the Joe Rogan Experience. "There's a lot of very mixed reviews about whether or not that would be a good thing or a bad thing for him. It's interesting. Man, the buzz around Tony Ferguson teaming up with David Goggins is wild. Some fighters are raising eyebrows, expressing concern about those Goggins workouts. But hold on, Joe Rogan, the man who's had Goggins on his podcast multiple times, isn't jumping on the skepticism train just yet. On the topic of Tony Ferguson's training with David Goggins, Joe Rogan shared his perspective. Rogan pointed out that this collaboration is uncharted territory because, as of now, there's no precedent of anyone training with David Goggins in the MMA world. Rogan noted the contrast during their joint workouts. He highlighted Goggins' remarkable endurance by mentioning how he's not even tired when Ferguson is facing challenges. "I don't know, because we've never seen anybody train with David before," Rogan said. "You can say on the one hand, when the two of them are training together, David is not struggling at all, and Tony is struggling. Now, a layer of speculation and anticipation of Ferguson's upcoming fights, making fans and observers wonder about the potential effects of their unique training partnership." All right, guys, that's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you at the next one. Until then, goodbye.